So, I watched The Boy and the Heron, and on the internet, everybody loves talking about movies and talking about how, oh, objectively, this movie is blah, 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 and objectively, that movie is blah, 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 blah. No, I'm gonna show you guys how an objective movie review is done, okay? And objectively speaking, I think that The Boy and the Heron is Hayao Miyazaki's best movie since The Wind Rises. Thank you. Okay, but for real though, does Hayao Miyazaki even need an introduction at this point? Like, hi, you're Hayao Miyazaki, the most legendary anime film director of all time, and you've constantly made classic after classic after classic, and after 10 years of like a pseudo-retirement, I don't know, he's done this a couple times before, kind of hiatus, he's back with another banger, just like me. I'm back. And I have thoughts about this movie. I have feelings about this movie. And let's start off with things that are always good in Studio Ghibli movies, always good in Hayao Miyazaki movies. The animation. Amazing. There's a sequence in the beginning of the movie where there's a fire and our main character is like running through the crowd, and it's genuinely one of Miyazaki's like best looking sequences ever in any movie. It looks so good, and it's animated so well and in such a different way than other Studio Ghibli sequences are animated, and it stands out as like one of the most breathtaking moments in the movie, despite it already being at the beginning of the movie. And the other thing always good about Studio Ghibli movies are Hayao Miyazaki and Joe Hisaishi being basically the Shaq and Kobe of director and composer duos. Like, these two, man, they're always cooking something up together. The music in this movie is fucking banging. But man, this movie is also really fucking weird. And I want to say that this movie is more like an initial reaction and my initial thoughts, and less of like an in-depth breakdown of the movie, because I think I need some time. I went into The Boy and the Heron like basically barely watching any trailers or any promotion for the movie, other than like maybe a 30-second clip of Robert Pattinson being in like his ghoul goblin mode. And I usually go into movies without watching trailers or avoiding as many trailers as I can, because I just like being surprised with movies, and sometimes trailers just be doing too much. So I wanted to go into this movie feeling surprised. And surprised I was, because The Boy and the Heron is really weird and has like tickled my brain in a way that like a movie hasn't done in a really long time. I still do think that, again, I need some time to digest this movie, and it's a movie that I'm very open to revisiting because, I mean, not to sound like your therapist here, there's a lot to unpack. I don't really love making comparisons because sometimes it feels like that can be kind of reductive, but I think the best way for me to describe this movie is if you take Spirited Away and you take Totoro and you combine it into one movie and sprinkle it with a little bit more maturity. The movie's overall plot and messages, I think, are pretty simple and to the point, but the execution is really strange and really abstract, and at points convoluted, especially towards the end, in my opinion. Like, immediately leaving the theater from watching this movie, I was like, huh? Despite Hayao Miyazaki being in this industry for like 40-ish years, this is somehow also his most abstract and like most conceptual and personal film in his entire filmography. And I kind of see this movie basically as like Miyazaki's Fabelmans, in that it's a very autobiographical, a very retrospective, a very personal film to Miyazaki that kind of looks back on like what inspired him, what launched him into wanting to be involved in creating stories and creating movies and creating worlds. Now, I don't want to talk too much about like what happens in the movie and like the plot and all of that, because I do think that people should go out and watch this movie. I mean, it's a Studio Ghibli movie. It's fucking Hayao Miyazaki. This might be his last movie ever. And I think something that works against this movie is itself. The direct translation of the Japanese title to English is How Do You Live? And I think How Do You Live is a more accurate title to the movie and its themes and the messages it wants to convey. I mean, first of all, it's just a raw fucking title to a movie, to anything really. It's such an evocative title, like, damn. How do I live? But instead we get this stupid ass, fucking gentrified ass title, The Boy and the Heron. Like, what the fuck is this? What is this, English distributors? Why? Why did you do that? And second of all, I do think that thinking about this movie from the perspective of How Do You Live versus the perspective of The Boy and the Heron, it helps you understand the movie way more, and it helps kind of set up like what this movie is actually about. Like, this movie isn't about really, I mean, it's about the boy, but it's not really about the heron. It would be like if Spirited Away was instead called The Girl and the fucking giant baby that also turns into a mouse. Sitting with it for a few days, I've already started warming up to it because I've looked at it from that perspective of How Do You Live? And from the perspective of it also kind of being most likely Hayao Miyazaki's final movie, his swan song. Then it's helped me sort of resonate with the messages and the motifs and the imagery and the overall concept of what this movie is trying to portray to its audience. However, I do still think that the payoff by the end is a little weak. I think that a lot of the conflicts in the movie that are resolved aren't super gripping and don't feel as emotional as they could have been, as at least like the first hour or so of the movie was. I was really invested in the first like hour and a half of the movie, and it kind of tails off in a way that I didn't find super satisfying by the end of it. And it seems like that based off of like the initial reactions off of its like worldwide release, it seems like a lot of people are really loving this movie, and I'm glad. That makes me happy. Again, it's a movie that I think I have to sit with for a little bit. And despite my issues with it, I'm already warming up to it the more and more I think about it. Just give me some time to successfully gaslight myself into thinking this movie is a masterpiece. And I know that he's faked us out previously with like Princess Mononoke and The Wind Rises, but there's just kind of a vibe that this movie has that is like, yeah, this is Hayao Miyazaki's last movie. Also, not to mention that he's like old as dirt, like, damn! I'm very glad that for seemingly Hayao Miyazaki's last movie, he managed to create something that's clearly incredibly personal to him and is a movie and a vision that he wanted to really stamp his legacy with, is a movie that he wanted to go out to, and is a movie that is something that hasn't really been touched by studio and executive interference. Like, this movie feels very untouched, and it very much feels like a fully formed vision from Hayao Miyazaki. Except for the stupid fucking title name, like, oh my god, dude, why? I'm also so glad that in 2023, Hayao Miyazaki didn't make a woke movie. I'm so happy that Hayao Miyazaki, very much known for his non-political views, also the guy who made totally not political movies such as Princess Mononoke and Porco Rosso and Howl's Moving Castle, and didn't attend the Oscars because of the US's involvement in the Middle East, didn't cave in to the woke mob. I'm so glad that the heron doesn't talk about his pronouns in this movie. So stupid. So as of this video, I don't know if I would put this movie like in the upper tier of Studio Ghibli or Hayao Miyazaki movies. I will say though, objectively speaking, this is still Hayao Miyazaki's best movie since The Wind Rises. Thank you guys for watching. As always, make sure you leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to keep up with more videos, and yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite Studio Ghibli movie is. I appreciate you guys watching and sticking through, and I'll see you guys next time. Mwah.